Hey guys, what's up? My name's Jason, and I wanted to make a video real quick kind of talking to you guys, like if you have a stock 4Runner, kind of what you might be expecting if you want to mod it out to, overland, to off-road, or for, mall crawling, whatever you're into there. But kind of want to show you guys what you expect, because when I first built mine out, I wasn't really sure how much it was going to cost. So I'll try to give you guys kind of a range, and I will put the price of everything sort of down here so you guys can get that accurate information. So let's go ahead and start off up front. If you're going to be doing any off-roading, really you should get yourself a bumper that carries a winch in it, just because, like we're out here in the snow right now, you really should have a way of recovering yourself. Also, make sure you get a winch that will be capable of carrying your vehicle. I have a Smitty built in here, and I really like that one. Some of the things you can add to that bumper, which is really nice, is a light bar. Now that is completely optional. Winch, I would say, is probably one of those things that people really overlook as like a first mod, but I would probably put that up there as one of the first mods that you really should get. Headlights on here. Now I've gone with a fairly expensive brand. This is a GTR, a subsidiary of Morimoto. You don't have to go this expensive. I think this was about 800, 900 bucks. I can't remember exactly. Still one of the cheaper ones, but I would recommend, if you have the stock headlight housing, that you at least go and get yourself some LEDs if you're going to be doing any like off-roading or anything like that. That's going to go ahead and give you just a little bit more light. Down here I have changed these out for amber lights here. Now these also aren't super cheap. These are diode dynamics. You can, however, change out the bulb for either a brighter white or a amber light down here. The amber is going to be really good if you're going to be doing any dusty driving, any snow, harsh weather, anything like that. Those are going to be really good, but you don't necessarily have to go with these. That's just what I really like, and I have them on the ditch as well as up top there. So while we're talking about up here, compressor is also pretty important. You don't have to put your compressor in here. That's just something I did because I figured out how to do it, and it was pretty simple. This is a pretty cheap one. It's only 100 bucks, and I don't think they make it anymore though. The reason I put it in here with this tray here, this is a battery tray, is because I wanted to be able to air up and air down while just reaching out and grabbing something rather than putting it inside my vehicle. You can certainly put it inside your vehicle and just store it when you want to go somewhere. It's just not something I really liked doing, but I did it for years and it was perfectly fine. All right, so another thing I want to talk about in here is wire management. If you do decide to go with, aftermarket lights, then you will have to figure out some sort of lighting management, or I guess wire management. I've gone with Oxbeam. This is one of the cheaper options for, lighting, wiring management. I think it's like 300 bucks for the one I had, which has Bluetooth capabilities, but you can even get those for like 100 something bucks. They're not super expensive. Or you can do what I did originally, which is super cheap, and you just kind of wire it in through, and you go to like the OEM little slots down there, and you just put in a button. Super easy, but you will have to kind of cleanly keep it up, because if you're putting lights on, you don't want there to be any chance of like a fire starting or something like that. I had mine professionally installed. I originally had done it myself, but I just like the way I have it set up a little bit better. I have gone with a 2.5-inch lift here. I've had two different iterations of lift on this one. I originally had an Icon full lift on here. I can't remember what it was, maybe a stage 3. I can't remember exactly. That one was pretty good, but some of the parts went out. So that's going to be a little bit more of a mid-budget one. You can go as high up as like king suspension and, long travel and spend however much you want. But right now I just have a replacement suspension, which is going to be a Pro lift with a spacer. Now that will still give you that 2 and some change inches of clearance on there, but it is not a comfortable ride by any means. But if you're a mall crawler or something like that, pretty good. If you're a light off-roader, also pretty good. And if you're heavy into off-roading, it will still work. It's just a little bit more of a springy kind of ride on it. I would also recommend that you go with some aftermarket upper control arms. I've gone with SPCs. They're not super expensive, and probably one of my favorite ones, and that'll give you a little more caster camber and a little bit more movement on the tire, so you can definitely go with those. Now, as far as tires, I would recommend, if you're going to go with a 3-inch lift, probably best to just stick with a 285/70/17. That's going to be probably the best fit for this wheel well. I had to do way too much, very expensive, just to get these to fit, and I probably wouldn't recommend it. But if you want to, you can go with these. These are Nitto Ridge Grappler 305/70/17. It's more of a 34, but there's a lot you have to do to make these work. So you can go with like BFG 285/70/17, something in that range like I had before. Now, as far as wheels on here, I have the Summit. I believe these are called the Striker. They were called Summit, but now they're called SSW, so they still have the old labeling on here, but it's called SSW now. These aren't super expensive, kind of a mid-range one. I had some SCS Ray 10s before. Those are a lot more expensive. But if you just go with the 285/70/17, you can just go with the wheels that come with it. If you have a Trail Edition or a TRD Pro or anything like that, typically, as long as you don't go super wide like these, you can still keep the stock wheels and be perfectly fine. All right, so moving back here, rock sliders. If you're going to be doing any heavy off-roading, I would recommend getting rock sliders. Those can range, all over the place. These weren't crazy expensive. I think they're kind of mid-range. They make them flat. They make them slide or angled, excuse me. There's tons of different things you can get on there. I would recommend, just like the bumper with the winch, this being kind of a pretty essential part of the modification process, just because this is very susceptible to damage from rocks and stuff like that. So we're going to hop up here real quick. If you're going to get lights on your vehicle, I like the ditch lights as giving you a little bit more widespread light. If you do any kind of darker off-roading, nighttime, rainy, stuff like that, I do like these. Now, I've had a couple iterations of this. At one point I had Baja. I switched to these diodes, but before that I had Nylite lights, and they just clipped on. I think that was a total of $40. I think this is somewhere around the 200 range or something like that. It's a little bit more expensive. Baja will go up a little bit more than that. So if you want to go with lights up top, this is probably one of the more expensive options. I really like this just because that is my personal choice. But if you feel like you want to get one up here, you can just get a light bar. Nylite makes them, I think as cheap as like $40, so you can do that up there. I like the aesthetics of this one. You also don't really need a light bar up there. To be completely honest, if you are really looking at lights and you want to know where to upgrade first, I would say the ditch lights or a light bar down low. I wouldn't consider this a necessary mod, but if you are looking to go that route, these are the Diode Dynamics. I really like them. Now that is attached to a Sherpa rack. So the roof rack is pretty much something that I would recommend as, if you're going to be overlanding, even off-roading, it's a great place to store recovery, rooftop tents, or, roto packs, anything like that. So there are tons of different rack companies out there. I have Sherpa. I really like them. They're local to me. I met those guys over there. I really like them, and I just really like the product they have. But this one is pretty middle of the road when it comes to price. Maybe on the higher end just because of the construction on it. I really like it, and they're local to me. They also make brackets for this light, and they make a bracket for roto packs, which I will be adding here soon. It's just sitting in my garage right now, but I really like what they make as a product. Something that I haven't added that you can add if you want some lighting while you're out camping is little pod lights that you can attach to these, and that way you have, scene lighting around. I haven't added that, and I probably won't, just because I have many different types of light that I bring with me camping. Now, going to this rooftop tent, I would not call this something that is necessary. Rooftop tent is something that is made for comfort. you know, you want to stay up high, then this is what you would want to get. You can go anywhere from this all the way up to, you know, there's some out there that are $30,000. They're all hard shell on the outside. I've had Tepui, I've had GFC, I had 2 different iCampers, and I really loved pretty much all of them. I like this, but this one right here is probably my favorite that I've had, just because of, you know, ease of use and the amount of space I get on them. But the Tepui was also great, and I think the Tepui was only like maybe $1,200 or something like that. But if you aren't married to the idea of the rooftop tent, then just go get a regular tent. So on the back, this is definitely something that I see sometimes people will get these and it's kind of unnecessary. Now I do like this because I have to get on the back to get to my rooftop tent. And you know, it has a ladder on it as well, but I like to be able to get up there to reach to it. But if you don't have anything on your roof, there's really no reason to get this, and you know, sometimes it can be kind of a hindrance to things if you have that back here. So if you don't need the ladder, I actually wouldn't recommend getting one. Maybe you can store a few things on it. Mine's been more of a pain than helpful over the years, and you know, I did have a tent at one point that only had this entrance, so I really had no choice but to go with this. Now, as far as a rear bumper on here, I don't have one. I have not gotten one, and they're just very expensive, so it's not necessary that you get one. I've been fine without it. I have dinged this plastic one up, whatever, I'm okay with that. But if you really care about that, then I would say you can go with the rear bumper. There's plenty of different brands out there. You know, I've got the C4 on the front. C4 makes one on the back. Windworks, tons of different ones out there. I don't personally have one right now just because I haven't needed it, but it does give you a full-size spare, and you know, you can add a lot of different modifications to it. I just haven't gotten around to it because of price. So kind of my last thing that I want to talk about in here is storage. Now you can just do what I've done in the past, where you just get some bins for like $50 and you just slide them in there and you're fine. But if you do want to get a drawer system like this, there's really not a great cheap option. I got super lucky with mine, and I got the owner of a company that no longer exists, his first model. So I paid about $500 for mine. There just isn't really a lot of cheap options when it comes to drawer. You know, a cheap option might cost you still $1,500, $1,200, something like that. If you want to go with that route, it is really helpful. If you overland, it is really helpful because you can store tons of stuff back here. But essentially for, you know, $1,500, $1,400 cheaper, you could get some bins and set them back here and be perfectly fine. That being said, guys, if I missed anything, let me know below. But for the most part, this is a fairly cheap build other than the tent and all that. If I could have just gone with a ground tent, I probably would be a little bit cheaper. I'm not into spending crazy amounts of money. You know, I'm probably sort of middle of the road when it comes to the choices I've made on here. But that being said, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video.